All right, welcome to the live stream. How you
Ahoy!
doing, Jimmy? How you doing?
Happy Saturday, Ben Costa. This guy over here, you know what I mean.
Today, we're going to be coloring this map here. This is the Mucklin's Realm map for the RPG. The Land of Eam RPG.
Yeah, it's the tabletop RPG that takes place in the world of the Rickety Stitch graphic novel Ceres.
Ceres.
I've got my notepad here.
So
I've got
yeah,
3 screens open. Let's make it happen.
so this is just a first pass of the colors, and I'm going to start coloring these landmarks, all the locations. You can see there's a hex grid. I'm going to hide that for now, and I'm just going to dive in here.
Indeed. So for those of you that don't know, the Land of Eam RPG is the Rickety Stitch RPG. It's a tabletop role-playing game that takes place in our world, and we are in the process of creating a big, meaty sandbox so that GMs have a lot of resources and can essentially have a bunch of quests and dungeons and characters and factions and all that jazz. And there's 5 regions. And Ben is in the process of coloring the used to be forest. Is that correct? Is this used? Yes, it is. The used to be forest section, which is where Rickety Stitch starts his journey at his company and gets fired in book 1, The Road to Eppley. And it's
this is actually his company. Right? This is Orfong's dungeon that I'm coloring right now.
Yeah, Orfong's dungeon, where Rickety worked for Madame Mauve Wazinski, the Goblin Chief Execution Officer of Subterranean Pits and Lairs LLC. Now that is some alphabet soup, if I ever saw it. But we love the idea of the Goblin, factions in the Land of Eam, and it being really industrial and kind of bureaucratic and corporate-y in their funny way.
This is Krogland, the amusement park owned by Krog, who's in book 2.
Krog and Sons Inc. He's the Goblin Tycoon, as it were, who goes on the middle route run with Rickety. I love Krogland, like a temple to himself, essentially, filled with you've got your Krog T-shirts and your Krog Slurpees. It's awesome.
In the game, it's an amusement park that's gone a bit haywire.
Mm-hmm. What's scarier than a haywire amusement park? Makes me think of the Joker's evil lairs in old Batman comics. It's like he's always in an amusement park or at a circus.
Yeah. I was looking at those old fairgrounds.
Yeah,
scary clown faces entrances.
And they're all kind of derelict, It's like the clown face is got chipped paint and missing a tooth.
Yeah.
It's like Zombieland. And the Zombieland. But that's good stuff. In this case, it's fully functioning. The business of Krogland is working. There's concession stands and things. It's just, yeah. Are you going to get killed on that roller coaster, or the animatronic's going to go crazy? That kind of stuff. Love it. Krog is an interesting character because unlike Subterranean Pits and Lairs, which is featured, throughout all of the Rickety Stitch series, Krog is sort of a self-made, independent tycoon bajillionaire, and he operates a little bit differently than the other goblin outfits.
Yeah, if you read the book and you didn't catch the similarities to Trump.
Yeah, it's definitely there. Kids and all.
The funny thing is that was totally, at first, I don't think we intended that at first, but it was like,
Yeah, right.
it became very clear.
Right. Krog and Sons. Keith asks, you like the classic PS setup, Benjamin?
This is just what I have currently. This is what number is this? CS4. So I actually don't have the new stuff.
So I have the new stuff, but I don't like customize mine at all. I just use the standard templates, standard tool view. I work with some folks that like super customize their Photoshop setups, but not I. I'm a square.
I am like, I've been using Photoshop for years and years, but it's for this very specific thing. It's not like I alter photos or like
right
do other stuff. I'm just making comics.
And you do all the drawing, and I always want to call it Manga Studio, but it has a new name.
It's called Clip Paint Studio.
Clip Paint
which
Studio.
is weird.
I just can never remember that, even though I've heard you say that out loud 4,000 times.
It's because I also use just an old version of the program. I'm like stuck in 2010.
Yeah, Keith says, nice. I like the classic too, but in dark mode. I use dark mode. I do use dark mode. It helps me differentiate it from other windows. It's like a silly reason to use it, but like I've got my big screen, I've got my laptop over here, and I've got a couple of browsers open or whatever. And whenever I'm messing around on Photoshop, I usually I pull it from one screen to another, and I like the dark mode because I can clearly see where the all the different windows and stuff are. It's like super geeky, but it just helps. Keith asks, Ben, what DPI are you working in?
I believe this is 600. Yep.
Which 600, if you tuned in, I think was the last time we talked about the 600 being maybe gratuitous. But
yeah, I think for this, it's useful because it's a map and we could blow it up to bigger sizes if we wanted.
Yep, that's true. It'd be cool to have some big poster, like large poster size versions of it, so you can really clearly see it. I've seen people what they'll do is
a map or something.
Yeah, like people do cloth maps. I've seen mouse pad maps. I've seen ones where people will print it out and put it on a really thin piece of metal and put it on the wall, and they'll actually use magnets to identify where they are. It was a pretty elaborate setup, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keith, it's definitely safe for illustration. Just the option to be able to blow it up and add some detail or just have printing capabilities, I think is totally worth it. So Ben, you added that crack in the used to be for us, and I've been mulling over what it could be. Mm-hmm. Have you had any thoughts on it? I've got a few, but I don't want to.
Well, the obvious thing is like a portal to the Underlands, like an easy portal.
Yeah, and
monsters.
Yeah, I was thinking Underlands, an entrance to the Underlands. I was also thinking it could be related to the Sarpathi, which are the big baddies of the Mucklans, the Snake Men.
Yeah.
So for those of you just joining us, Ben is coloring the Land of Eam map. This is the world of Rickety Stitch, and the map is used specifically for the Land of Eam RPG game. We are excited to be working on it. For the crack, I added a quest at Wally's
where Shumwise has he's in debt and he needs you to go retrieve his stash.
It's great. Wally is a character from Rickety Stitch Book 1. If you're familiar with the graphic novel series, Wally owns Wally's Waffles and Wargs, which is kind of a fast food restaurant that Rickety Stitch goes to play open mic night.
Larissa, hey Larissa, she's asking, so what's the Goblin Head place? That is Krogland.
So that's Krogland. That's the theme park that is built kind of like a temple to Krog and Sons Inc. or Krog, the founder of Krog and Sons Inc. Krog is one of the villains of Rickety Stitch Book 2, the Middle Route Run. He's like a goblin tycoon guy that is kind of in love with his own legend, and it's a theme park that's gone a little bit haywire, but you can still get a Krog t-shirt there. Keith asks, do you have any warm-up drawing exercises that you recommend? It's like a lot of push-ups. Ben does a pull-up before.
I'd probably be in better shape if I did that.
No kidding. I should just 10 push-ups every hour.
To be honest, I'm at the point where I just dive in and start drawing, but
you have a ritual where, like, if you're about to start a new drawing project, like any other project, you sketch ideas, but you sketch quite a lot. Like, you go through a lot of sketching iterations before you really dive in. Not so much with a book, though. With a book, it's like you kind of grind through it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have specific exercises. People like fan art. I know, so maybe you just practice by drawing some other characters that exist. It's something I want to do more of, but I don't know. My time is occupied by all this stuff.
An endless punch list things to create and make.
But it's always in the back of my mind, like, maybe I should do fan art.
There's Wally's Waffles and Wargs. A little sign there. I dig it. In the Mucklands, for those of you that don't know, the Mucklands is what we're looking at right now. This is the sandbox where Rickety Stitch starts his adventure and where the Land of Eam RPG gets going. And Wally's Waffles and Wargs is one of the first locations. It's like that central location, that like tavern-esque location where it's filled with characters and, NPCs and all that jazz, so that you can kind of start to explore this world. Good starting point, Day.
Your classic tavern starting point.
Indeed. And these different locations and all these characters are pretty important to the Land of Eam RPG, because this game is really based on creative solutions. It's not like a hack and slash game at all. Like, a lot of the powers that you get as the different classes as you progress are super creative. You make up a solution, you roll dice to see if you're successful with the solution. And the reason we did that is because Ben and I, the way we like to play Dungeons and Dragons and different RPGs is we love the creative solutions and we get bored or bogged down in combat all the time. And we just wanted to, we felt that the Land of Eam is not necessarily a hack and slash world, even though, there's definitely fighting and there's definitely fiends and conflicts. But it's a little more cartoony, a little more lighthearted, I think, even though some of the villains are quite evil.
Like last night we played, and the party ended up fighting some skeletons. So.
Yeah, that was a situation where we actually fought. And the fighting is pretty quick and fun as well. the character that I'm testing is the gnome. It's both a species and a class, kind of like the old school Dungeons and Dragon elf and dwarf. And it's really funny because like my character is a gnome with a magnificent scimitar. It's just like a fun visual, hacking and slashing at skeletons. And the bard of the group was using his face melt power, which is like a crazy solo. And it's fun. It's like fun and quick, and you feel pretty strong, but at the same time, the threat is great. And instead of hit points and damage, we use courage and dread. And death is very different in the Land of Eam, but won't get too much in the weeds. But that's the gist of it. Rickety Stitch is a world with multiple tones. It goes from a Muppety adventure to grand high fantasy Lord of the Rings on the drop of a dime. It's amazing how much the color adds, like, to the special locations. It's cool.
Yeah. And also, when I add place names, that's gonna be a game changer.
What are you thinking about the composition of the place names? Like, are you going to do it in another color, or what are you thinking?
What do you mean?
Oh, just like how it will appear. I had some ideas, like if it's a black and white place name, just like writing the name and then erasing some of the lines behind it so that it kind of hovers over it. It's easy to read. Mm-hmm. Or using like another off color with the same strategy. I don't know. It's just an idea.
Yeah. Oh.
Don't know. Just an idea. That's what this stream is for. Coming up with ideas, being creative.
The test one was like some the huge words, like this is the used to be forest.
Yeah, right.
White, and then the smaller ones were black.
Keith says, my favorite D&D book was the D&D Cyclopedia. One book is all you need. Yeah, cool. That's Ben and I were just talking about how big this sandbox book is already. There's got to be well over 100 characters and quest hooks, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of random selections on tables between encounters and items, and you name it. In fact, I've got a spreadsheet open right now that's just traps, puzzles, riddles, and obstacles. And there's 20 traps, 20 puzzles, 20 riddles, and I'm gonna crank out 20 obstacles. Any ideas you guys have for obstacles would be great. These are like environmental ones, not necessarily riddles or puzzles.
That you would find in a dungeon.
Yeah.
Because one thing we're trying to do is have a simple system with tables where, because in the random encounters, there are a lot of instances where you discover a dungeon, but if you don't have something planned, we want to have like a system, a mechanic to where you can produce a dungeon on the fly.
Yeah, you can roll some dice and generate a whole dungeon. It's interesting, I've very rarely, I don't think I've ever played like true sandbox style for any long period of time. And so we've played a bunch of times the beta test of the Land of Eam. And what I am discovering is it's kind of cool to have like a primary objective, but to go on all these side quests along the way. It's like a sandbox is a side quest, paradise, essentially. It's just like endless things to do. Like I think our group has 4 objectives or something right now. There's 4 things that we're working on.
Yeah.
And, we've only visited 3 locations. Not to mention all the side quests. Not to mention the side quests we generated just by random encounters that turn into something. Or one thing that's really cool and about maps in general, I think, is that there's always this desire to discover, and Ben has done a great job with the art so far of the Mucklands map, because I want to visit like several of these locations just to see what's going on. And sandbox events are neat because you can start to piece together in a non-linear way all the stories that are just buried in it. I remember playing the Fallout series, and there's like all these examples of these mini quests where you discover something and it's like, oh, you find a note, and the note says something on it that takes you somewhere else, and then you find a computer, and then you find a whatever, and you end up piecing together this like grand drama that happened in these different locations that you were at like a long time ago. And I've always thought that was super cool, and so many RPGs have that type of mechanic, and it's neat. I love playing it, and I don't think I've ever fully experienced it in a tabletop RPG.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch like what you guys do in terms of what you're pursuing, because you've gone from, you started here in Beaselberf, went to Junktown, then traveled down to Skiff, which is this town here, went to the Quagspire, which is like a dungeon, and then you went to Sinkhole. So that's 5 locations, and then that's like a bunch of traveling with random encounters.
Yeah. Barely scratched the surface, you know what I mean? Es interesante. Up there in the corner with all the rivers and rills, which is a great word. It's river country. It's filled with rascals and river bandits and gamblers, and ruled by the ruled by the river barons, which are these crime lordy, Sheriff of Nottingham-y type bad guys.
It also has turtle people.
Yeah, that's what Ben's coloring right there. The Cortland. Hey, Ryan Bridge. Welcome. For those of you that are just joining us, we are in the process of coloring the world map to the Rickety Stitch Land of Eam RPG. It's a tabletop role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons that focuses on creative solutions instead of combat. And it takes place in the world of the Rickety Stitch graphic novel series. Ben is painting it right now. He's adding some color to all these different locations that can be explored by the players and meet new characters and have adventures and dungeons and all that jazz. Really cool stuff, and we've been testing it for the last several weeks, and it's been really fun. And super thanks to our buddies Darren and George, Amir, and Elliot for creating characters and playing through the game. It's been a lot of fun. What are you thinking, Costa? See you playing with the colors here.
Yeah, these towns are a little trickier.
It's tricky because you want to make them feel natural, but also give them their own color palettes so that they're all slightly different and interesting.
Yeah,
Keith asks,
so it's go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, Keith asks, are you working with the CMYK or RGB?
I always use CMYK just because of print. Print is usually our goal,
Mhm.
and in the beginning, actually, this is RGB.
Well, that throws a wrench in the works, as it were.
I think that must have been because of the source material, because this used to be it used to be a hexographer map.
And hexographer is just a tool that creates the hexes, which Ben can toggle on and off. And in the game, we use hexes and hex travel rules to get from one place to another.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing that up.
Now we're doing some work to correct it.
Nah, I mean, this is pretty early on in the process.
Yeah. A lot of deets to come. A lot of deets.
You can see how it's a little different. But yeah, the hexographer map is right here.
This was the proto color scheme that Ben put together so that we could understand the different environments that existed in Rickety's world. And this is a pretty good centralized view of the map of where Rickety Stitch began his journey in book 1. And our plan is that as we release additional books, like book 3, we will release more parts of the map so that you can dig into the lore and adventures of Rickety Stitch and kind of follow his path.
Yeah, Keith. I definitely ran into some problems early on in comics with converting stuff from RGB to CMYK.
Ben, are you wearing your resting lich face shirt?
I am, yes.
That's what it is. I knew I was like, gosh, that looks really familiar.
Available on ricketystitch.com.
Yeah, I'm wearing my Rickety Stitch t-shirt too as well. That's available on ricketystitch.com. The resting lich face still makes me laugh. Is that Elliot that came up with that?
Yeah, he said it one time.
That's so funny.
But we're keeping all the profit for ourselves.
Indeed. And Elliot's reward is toiling away at a beta test for the whole Planet Beam RPG. No, we love you, Elliot. I'm sorry, I love you. What are some obstacles for adventurers that they could face? Some environmental stuff, like things like cave-ins and flooding, and
A pit is classic.
Pit is classic.
Chasms.
Portcullis. The portcullis is a gate. Hey Ryan, you have a great weekend too. Go get back to work. Make some amazing beer.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, so folks, Ryan Bridge is a brewer. He's a master brewer, and he works for Strike Brewing Company in San Jose, California, and they brew some spectacular tasting beer. Thank you, Keith. Gosh, we really appreciate it. I can't wait for you to join more stuff in the future. We're probably going to do something on Wednesday or Thursday and talk about more stuff, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, thank you.
Cave-in, portcullis. I really like the reverse gravity idea. Like elemental walls are interesting because you've got to like maybe not an earth one, but a fire one and an ice one. That's not, you know, really straightforward to get through if you get blocked in somewhere. Fire. Nice. You too, Keith. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Keith. Variations on pits, like, you know, swinging from vines, jumping on platforms, moving platforms.
Moving platforms is great. I recently have gotten into playing the action RPG Path of Exile, I think. Path to Exile? Path of Exile. It's like a Diablo 2 clone, and it has these labyrinth levels. I gotta send you a video of these labyrinth levels. They're super cool, man. And they've got all these moving parts, like spikes coming out of the ground and like big cleavers that chop down, and these like tracks that exist throughout the levels, and they've got like buzzsaws and crazy stuff, but it's all super stylized and cool, and it's just like an obstacle galore, not to mention the monsters that you have to do battle with and whatnot, and the fact that you're in a literal maze is also interesting, but it's super cool. The story I cannot follow to save my life. But the visuals and the gameplay, I thought it was really fun. It really takes me back to our days playing Diablo.
Those were the good days.
Yeah, those were good days. Playing Diablo 2. Hardcore mode. No magical items. Uniques only. So for those of you, Diablo 2, like the Diablo series, like Ben and I had this one particular type of style of play that we would do all the time, or at least a couple of times, where we would both choose the barbarian class, and we had these special rules. So had to be hardcore mode. We're not allowed to use magical items. We're not allowed to repair items. And just had to kind of just, if it broke, you drop something, you pick something else. And the only items that you could keep were set items and unique items. And boy, did that really amp up the struggle. But it was such a fun way to play.
And if you're not aware, hardcore is like you die once,
it's over. Yeah, you have to start over. And we loved playing in that mode. It's like, normally I don't play games like that, but for whatever reason, it's just that extra threat really amped things up. I remember playing with Amir and Darren, and I made a paladin character that was all 100% defensive, and I couldn't die. Like I could not die. And you guys died like on Diablo, and I didn't know what to do with myself, so I took off all of my armor and all my equipment. I just walked into the room and died because I couldn't live in a world where I wasn't playing it with you guys. Just by myself, it lost all of its majesty.
Yeah, there were a lot of instances like that with hardcore mode.
Just snatches the fun away. You gotta start at the beginning.
I remember Amir dying on like a druid.
Carl Winslow, right?
Yeah.
He was a druid. Our friend Amir's character in Diablo 2, a hardcore druid named Carl Winslow. And back in the day with low connectivity, he blinked out, and then when it came back, he was dead.
I like ran in and picked up his stuff and just felt dirty.
Picking up his stuff.
He had like a unique Beck to Corbin.
I'm sorry, man. I need this unique Beck to Corbin. Oh my god, that's funny. Oh man. What's amazing is that we've been playing games with Amir and Darren for like our entire lives. Ben and I have known each other since we were in the second grade. So like my first ever D&D was with Ben, and we still play together, and it's been an amazing adventure. Now it's great to be here creating stuff with your pals.
Indeed
or do, as Heriberto Terrazas would say, one of our longtime Diablo 2 companions. And one of my top 5 favorite people ever. Lava flow. Okay, here's what I got so far. Cave-in, portcullis, reverse gravity, wall of fire, wall of ice, lava flows, moving platforms,
Acid pool.
acid pool,
Stuff like a bed of fungules, which are carnivorous mushrooms in the landing.
Bed of,
You know, a lot of those like hazardous type of creatures that you can't really talk to or fight really.
Right,
They're
right.
just like obstacles.
Mm-hmm. Fungules are fun too because they're just like they're fixed on the ground but really dangerous. Like if you step on them. For those of you who've read Rickety Stitch Book 1, The Road to Eppley, when Rickety first gets into the Grimly Wood, he encounters a fungule, which is like this like tiny ravenous mushroom that's like really angry, but he thinks it's cute because Rickety's a goofball.
Yeah. It's like frothing at the mouth as he's petting it.
I don't know what to call it, but like a rolling drill thing, like in Jim Henson's Labyrinth. Those goblins, like they're like cranking it. It's like one of my favorite things ever in the world is that thing. These tiny goblins just like cranking it with their whole bodies.
That's sort of a trap.
It is sort of a trap, but it's not like they triggered it though. It just like is always around. It's like roving. Oh, it's like a roving monster kind of. Like a roving obstacle. Yield and rovery.
A patrol, if you will.
A patrol. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Patrol. Patrol. Very cool. The ruins of Rylock there. So, for a lot of you guys that don't know, on ricketystitch.com, there's a section of lore posts that we put out for over a year. I think there's probably over 100 of them, and they are little snippets, like little narratives or histories of different things that exist on the page in the Rickety Stitch graphic novel series. So there may be one instance is Rickety Stitch in the gelatinous goo or traveling. They're like going through a montage of the different locations in the used to be forest. And one of them is these ruins that they pass through. And so we've got like posts that explain like the history of the ruins and things like that for the folks that like to geek out about world building like we do.
And now it's a fully fleshed out location that you can explore.
Right, that you can explore.
There was one panel devoted to Rickety Stitch and the Goo, just like passing through.
Yep, but many hours creating characters and encounters and things. But Ben and I love to do that stuff. I find it easier to tell stories if the story is grounded in a world, however wacky and goofy. And so Ben and I both have a love of just world building and creating characters and locations and stuff. And what's been super cool is that now that we've done all this work in the Mucklands to create this sandbox for everybody, we find ourselves using it creatively on new projects, or using it to essentially create a footing for new characters that we're creating. Ben and I, we finished book 3. It is complete. It is going to be coming out next year. As you can imagine, there's been a delay with all the craziness going on in the world right now. There's been a delay, and it's expected to come out in spring of next year. The exact date we don't know yet. But since then, we've also been working on new projects, new series that that take place in Rickety's world, and this has been I've found a super helpful exercise to kind of ground that stuff, so we can tell new epic epic adventures about beds of funguls and moving platforms.
There are those things.
That's true.
I
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
I was thinking we could actually do another live stream, maybe of the copy edits for book 3.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that would be interesting, but
yeah. Well, not on anything that would be spoilery, but a sneak
yeah,
peek
like the
at some of book
beginning
3 and do some copy edits
pages or
of it.
something.
Yeah, and so what Ben means by copy edits is after the book is completed and after the final art is finished, we get notes back from the publisher, and the publisher takes a PDF and like marks it up, and then we go through and we look for art continuity issues as well as copy edits where we use the wrong word or there needs to be a comma, simple things that we're not focused on when producing the final book. And so we take about a month, and Ben goes through and he makes the adjustments, and we'd love to share that process with you. It's tedious, but you get to see a sneak peek of Rickety Stitch Book 3.
Also, I'll probably be doing art, because one thing that is true about the whole comic book process for me is that early on, you start to draw a character, and then it kind of evolves after 200 pages. So the first stuff doesn't look the same exactly as the later stuff. So you go back and kind of tweak the early design.
Right.
And that's usually like the first few times that character shows up.
Yeah, right. Percival Dante. Who's
Kanta.
only mentioned Kanta, yeah. All new characters, essentially. Although Percival Dante is mentioned. He's like the whisper of him. He's actually mentioned in Wally's Waffles and Wargs up there, just above that, just above the castle and the Orphan's Dungeon. But
he's mentioned twice in book 1, actually.
Is he really? What's the second mention?
When Rickety's talking to Nerman about music.
Oh yeah. Right, of course. But in book 3, Rickety Stitch actually has the opportunity to meet the living Percival Dante, who is very, very loosely based off of a D&D character that was played by our buddy Darren when we were in 6th grade or 5th grade, around that time. Yep, we've known Darren for over 25 years also. Same group of pals, playing the same games, having the same conversations we had when we were 10 years old. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Love the Bogwatch tower color. It's like Castle Grayskull.
Yes. The Bogwatch is a sort of dilapidated tower that houses some bulwarks who are, vigilantes of the used to be forest, who kind of protect the trade roads, and in the case of the Bogwatch, they're protecting the borders of the used to be forest from orches. And I said that correctly, orches.
Orches, yeah. Ben and I have a
Basically,
habit of adding a CH to everything.
They're like pig-faced goblins, obviously based off orcs, but they're pigs.
A little bit like the old school Lord of the Rings animation.
Yeah.
Pig-faced orcs. I've always loved that aesthetic for orcs. I've never really been a World of Warcraft orc kind of guy. Although they are cool. I get the appeal. So super top heavy with the tusk teeth and, He-Man arms. It's pretty cool. the little mushrooms outside of that cave. It gives it a little something, something. Like there's mushrooms in there, you know.
That is the moldy cave.
The moldy cave. Very mushroomy. It's a moldy cave.
Not only are there mushrooms, but some say there's a Mung Lord in there.
A Mung Lord. A mighty slime creature. The mighty slime. A mighty ooze. A mighty wind. For those of you that don't know, Ben and I are weirdos.
Speak for yourself, dude. I mean...
And legitimately, we talk to each other like that for like 6 hours a day.
I talk to myself alone. Like
So
that.
do I. So do I. I do a lot of affirmations when I'm working. I'll be like, mm-hmm, yes. So we got a rolling drill, a bed of fungals, acid pool, moving platforms, lava flows, your classic walls of fire and ice, a reverse gravity room, portcullis, cave-in, flooding, kind of obstacles, environmental obstacles can exist. A rickety rope bridge.
Yes. Yes.
What about some monsters? You know what I mean? Like some creatures that could be wandering around, getting up to mischief. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say we got that creature document.
Yeah.
And then there's a category of more like hazardous. I think I call them creepers.
Yeah.
Those could be obstacles because they're like...
Did you ever go through and organize all the creatures and animals that I added? Or are they just... I've been adding like lots of...
I haven't like put stats to them, but they're under critters.
Oh, I see. It just wasn't loading. I got it. Yeah, there they are. All kinds of critters in the land of Eve. It just keeps growing.
There's currently creatures, critters. Creatures are like things you can really interact with and like talk to. Critters are more like beasts. Who
And
don't speak.
We've got like lots of insects and spiders and new creatures that we've created ourselves. Creepity crawlies. Blinking cave incher. Thorny bingles, pinder snaps, fungules, morbs, tar crabs, keister snaps, not to be confused with pinder snaps, pocket fiddlers, grail ticks, railworms, gutter snails. My new favorite is the kaleidoscorpion. It's like, has no description of what it is yet, but we've used it in a new project and it's going to exist in the Mucklands.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, it is mentioned in the project. I think kaleidoscorpion is, if it stings you, your skin changes a bunch of colors over the course of a few days or something. Kind of like the horse of a different color in the old Wizard of Oz movie.
And if you turn purple, well, you know you got a problem.
Indeed. You know you do. You know you do. I'm going to add a Kaleidoscorpion den. Railworm. Rude. Gutter snail nest. Liger shark pool. Liger shark. Oh, I love that. Liger shark. It's like a tiger shark, but better. Jackal
And
rabbit.
it can't reproduce.
That's the science of a liger shark. Oh, man. Raging Ramgor. Prowl. Prowl catacomb. Crag lizard. Look at that. That's cool. Love the towers. It reminds me of the tower that the fireworks are in Rickety Stitch Book 2, the Middle Route Run.
Oh, yeah.
A dig. Skeeter hatchery.
Dang old skeeters.
Huge skeeters. They're gonna drink your blood. Okay, that's 20 obstacles. That's pretty good. I'll write some descriptions and stuff for them later, but it's good to
So
have
there's
the
20
list.
obstacles, 20 puzzles, 20 riddles.
And 20 traps.
Nice.
Yeah. Obstacles are super usable too, so I might double up on them. I might make the obstacles 40. Because they not only are they like an obstacle or an encounter, but they also can help create some flavor for a random dungeon, like create it so it's,
Yeah.
got a little bit of an atmosphere, a little bit of attitude.
A little bit of tude, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got like a tude. For sure. So we've got 3 minutes less in our stream. It's crazy. Time just flies by hanging out with y'all.
Indeed.
You made some great progress today too, Ben. It's looking cool. It's coming together.
You know, this is the first step, and going to have to, color everything, fill it in like a coloring book, and then shade it.
Mm-hmm.
So the mountains will have, shading on one side, for instance.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Takes time. Just got to keep at it. Ben, what did I say we might stream on our next stream on Wednesday? Sarpathy, the Snake Men.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is that what I promised? Jeez, I should have wrote notes.
We haven't promised any. I mentioned possibly doing the copy editing of book 3.
Oh, maybe we should do that next Saturday. That way we can talk about it and let people know that we're going to do a sneak peek of book 3.
Yeah. But I think before the stream we were talking about doing the Sarpathy stuff.
Yeah. So the Sarpathy stuff, for those of in the last minute that we have, those are the Snake Men. And so as part of the Mucklins, the Rickety Stitch Mucklins area and world, there's a big threat that the Snake Men might take over the Mucklins. And so there's that overlooming, conflict that exists in the sandbox. And what we wanted to do was create some lore and do some art and show what the Sarpathy are all about. We're probably going to do that Wednesday.
Cool.
Look at that. It's amazing what a little bit of shading does.
Indeed.
All right. Well, that's it for today's stream. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for all your questions. It's always fun.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Yes, indeed. And everybody stay safe. I know it's a crazy time. Just wash your hands and wear masks when you go out. And we will see you Wednesday.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.